Albert Camus' quote, "In the depth of winter I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer," is a testament to the human capacity for resilience, hope, and inner strength. In this metaphor, winter signifies hardship, suffering, despair, or any adverse circumstance in life. It is often used to symbolize the darker, colder periods of our life where things seem bleak or devoid of hope. On the other hand, summer represents warmth, hope, vitality, and joy, essentially the better and brighter periods of life. When Camus talks about discovering an invincible summer within himself, he means that he has found an enduring source of strength, resilience, and optimism within his own being, despite external circumstances. In essence, this quote expresses the idea that even in our darkest hours, the depths of winter, we possess an internal source of hope and resilience, an invincible summer, that can help us overcome adversity. This notion is in line with much of Camus' philosophy, which often emphasizes the human capacity to find meaning and happiness despite life's inherent absurdity and hardship.
The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. This quote by Albert Camus, a French philosopher and writer, is an expression of defiance and resilience against oppressive or restrictive circumstances. When he says the only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion, he is suggesting that one should strive for personal freedom and autonomy in a world that seeks to control or limit individual liberty. Camus, an existentialist thinker, believes that individuals must create meaning and purpose in their lives despite living in an absurd and chaotic world. By pursuing absolute freedom, one is not only rejecting external constraints, but also taking responsibility for their own choices and actions, which in itself is a rebellious act. This notion of personal freedom can be understood as a form of resistance against the oppressive forces in society, asserting one's individuality and autonomy in the face of control or conformity. In essence, the quote is a call to pursue personal liberation and self-determination, even if it means going against the grain or defying societal norms and expectations. The pursuit of freedom can inspire others to challenge oppressive systems, ultimately fostering change and fostering a more just and equitable world.
Albert Camus' quote, "I do not believe in God and I am not an atheist," reflects his philosophical views of absurdism and can be considered quite complex and nuanced. Number 1. I do not believe in God. This statement indicates his rejection of conventional religious belief systems, especially the idea of an omnipotent, omniscient deity who interacts with the world or provides it with inherent purpose. Camus, aligned with his absurdist philosophy, held the belief that the universe was indifferent and devoid of higher meaning or purpose. 2. I am not an atheist. Despite rejecting the notion of a personal God, Camus refrains from identifying as an atheist. This might seem contradictory at first, but it reflects his philosophy. Atheism often implies a certainty that there is no God, a level of certainty Camus was not comfortable with, given his emphasis on embracing the inherent uncertainty of life. Furthermore, atheism is sometimes associated with nihilism, the belief that life is meaningless. But Camus, despite acknowledging the indifference of the universe, believed in the importance of creating personal meaning and embracing life's absurdity. Camus' philosophy of the absurd is rooted in the conflict between our human desire for order, purpose, and meaning in life, and the apparent indifference of the universe. Instead of adopting religious beliefs, theism, or concluding that nothing matters, nihilism, Camus advocated for acknowledging this absurdity and living life passionately in spite of it. Thus, his quote could be seen as a summary of his philosophical stance, a refusal to accept divine purpose or cosmic order, but also a rejection of absolute disbelief or despair. In essence, he suggests acknowledging life's inherent uncertainty and finding meaning in our personal experiences and passions, despite the seeming indifference of the universe. Albert Camus wrote the phrase "one must imagine Sisyphus happy" in his essay The Myth of Sisyphus. In the essay, Camus uses the Greek myth of Sisyphus as a metaphor for the human condition. In the myth, Sisyphus is condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up a hill, only for it to roll back down when it nears the top, forcing him to repeat this task for all eternity. Camus saw this as a metaphor for the repetitive and seemingly meaningless tasks that make up most of our lives. However, Camus also suggests that there's a kind of freedom in Sisyphus' situation. Even though Sisyphus' labour is futile and eternal, he is aware of his predicament. He knows that the boulder will roll back down and he'll have to start over, but he continues to push the boulder anyway. In doing so, Sisyphus asserts his agency and finds a kind of satisfaction in his task. So when Camus writes, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy," he is suggesting that despite the apparent meaninglessness of life, the absurdity of existence, we can still find contentment. By fully accepting and embracing the absurdity of life, we can live with passion and authenticity, taking joy in the struggle itself and the freedom to continue in spite of it. In other words, Camus suggests that we can create our own meaning and find happiness in the act of living itself, no matter how futile or repetitive our tasks may seem. If you want to learn more about Sisyphus and other characters from mythology, please check out our sister channel, Bite-Sized Mythology. The link is in the description. Albert Camus was a leading figure in the philosophical school of thought known as absurdism. Absurdism holds that life is inherently meaningless, and it is absurd for humans to seek meaning or purpose in an indifferent universe. The quote, "Should I kill myself or have a cup of coffee?" is a stark, somewhat darkly humorous expression of this perspective. It juxtaposes an act of extreme finality, suicide, with an act of mundane daily life, drinking coffee, highlighting the absurdity of both. In the face of life's inherent meaninglessness, both options might appear equally valid or absurd. However, the quote also echoes one of the central themes of Camus' philosophy, the idea that awareness and acceptance of life's absurdity can lead to a kind of freedom. In his essay The Myth of Sisyphus, Camus argues that rather than leading to despair or suicide, accepting the absurdity of existence can lead to a life that is rich, passionate, and consciously chosen. So in this context, the quote could be seen as an illustration of the absurdity of life and the radical freedom that comes with acknowledging it. Whether to end one's life or to simply continue with the ordinary routines of existence becomes a conscious choice, made in the face of an indifferent universe. If you want to learn about Sisyphus and other characters from mythology, head over to our sister channel, Bite-Sized Mythology. The link is in the description. Albert Camus, a French philosopher and one of the key figures associated with existentialist and absurdist thought, believed that humans often live in conflict with their own nature and the realities of their existence. His quote, "Man is the only creature who refuses to be what he is," reflects this view. The statement could be interpreted in a few different ways. One interpretation is that humans often refuse to accept their basic nature and the realities of the human condition, such as morality and the lack of inherent meaning in life, and instead spend much of their lives trying to transcend these realities or seeking external sources of meaning or validation. Another interpretation is that humans often strive to be more than what they are, constantly seeking to improve or change themselves, often driven by societal expectations or personal dissatisfaction. This constant striving and refusal to accept oneself as is can lead to internal conflict and existential anguish. Yet another interpretation is that humans, unlike other animals, are capable of self-reflection and self-awareness, which allows them to question their own nature and existence. This self-reflection, however, can also lead to a refusal or an inability to accept oneself as one is, resulting in a perpetual struggle with one's own identity and place in the world. In all these interpretations, the core idea is that humans are unique in their capacity to question, challenge, and often reject their own nature, leading to a variety of existential conflicts and struggles. In the quote, "Nobody realizes that people expend tremendous energy merely to be normal," Albert Camus is emphasizing the effort that many individuals put into fitting societal norms and expectations, often at the expense of their own identity and peace of mind. The concept of normality is subjective. and largely dictated by social expectations and conventions. It can range from behavior and appearance to lifestyle and belief systems. To align oneself with these established norms, some people may suppress their natural tendencies, unique personalities, or unconventional interests. This conformity requires a considerable amount of effort and can result in stress, dissatisfaction, or even a loss of self-identity. Camus, with his existentialist leanings, emphasizes the importance of authenticity and personal freedom. This quote can be seen as a critique of the societal pressures that force individuals to conform and abandon their authentic selves. The quote encourages recognition and empathy towards those who struggle with these pressures, highlighting the invisible emotional labor that goes into maintaining a facade of normality. Ultimately, Camus seems to be suggesting that it might be more fulfilling to live authentically, even if it means deviating from what is conventionally considered normal.